On a freezing night in Madison, a former Navy SEAL and his silent German Shepherd stop under an abandoned bridge for one reason. A sound almost too weak to be real. What Ryan Carter finds in the darkness is a mother dog tied by the leg, shaking, guarding 4 newborn puppies with nothing but her body and a broken plastic bin. No collar, no help. Just fear in her eyes that says someone did this on purpose. Ryan cuts the rope and carries them home, thinking the rescue is over. But the next morning, the vet finds something chilling. A scar where a microchip used to be, like someone erased her identity. 2 nights later, a van with no lights rolls in. A net snaps. A cage slams shut. Ryan follows, and what he hears behind a warehouse door makes his blood turn cold. If this story moves you, share it to spread kindness. Comment where you're watching from, and subscribe for more powerful rescue stories like this. The sound under the bridge. Snow had turned to gray crust along Madison's streets, and wind off the lake cut through every gap in a coat. Night made the city quieter than it deserved. Ryan Carter walked with the careful rhythm of a man who knew pain by name. 40, tall, broad-shouldered, white, with an angular face and a square jaw, he carried a calm that looked natural until you noticed how alert his eyes stayed. His dark brown gaze was warm when it could be, sharp when it had to be. A neatly trimmed beard showed a few silver threads at the temples. His left knee, old damage that never fully forgave him, made his stride a touch stiff. He wore the same winter uniform he always did, as if keeping it unchanged helped keep the rest of life from shifting. A navy winter coat that reached mid-thigh, a red and black plaid flannel beneath it, faded jeans, brown, low-cut leather boots. At his side moved his service dog, a 5-year-old black and tan German Shepherd with upright ears and amber-brown eyes that seemed to measure every shadow. The dog did not pull, did not bark to announce itself. It watched. It listened. It followed Ryan's pace like a promise. Ryan wasn't out for a stroll. He told himself it was just air, just movement, just something to keep his thoughts from circling. But the truth was simpler. He slept better after he walked. The nights felt less crowded in his head. They cut toward the older part of town, where the railroad line had gone quiet, and the bridge stood like a tired spine over a narrow service road. Salt-stained concrete, rusted metal, and the smell of wet leaves trapped in corners the sun never reached. The German Shepherd slowed. Not a dramatic stop, just a small change that Ryan had learned to respect. The dog's head lifted, ears angled forward, body still. No sound, but the message was clear. Ryan followed the line of the dog's gaze into the dark under the bridge. Then he heard it. A whimper, thin and swallowed fast, like something trying not to be heard. Ryan's chest tightened. He hated that feeling, the split-second calculation of whether to walk away and pretend he never noticed. It always reminded him of places he'd been where people did exactly that and called it survival. He crouched, his left knee flashing with pain, and forced himself down anyway. "Easy," he murmured, more to himself than the dog. His breath fogged the air. Under the bridge, tucked behind a broken pallet and a pile of damp trash bags, a mother dog stared back at him. She was medium-sized, but looked smaller from hunger. Her coat was matted with dirt and road grime, clumped around her ribs. Her eyes were wide and bright with fear, yet she did not bolt. She held her ground. A frayed length of rope had been looped around her rear leg and tied to a rusted piece of metal, just tight enough to keep her from moving far. Every shift made her flinch. Ryan's gaze dropped, and he saw why she stayed. A cracked plastic bin sat close to her belly. Inside it, 4 puppies huddled together, tiny bodies trembling, their breaths faint. They were too young to understand cold, only that it hurt. One of them made a weak sound, and the mother's head snapped down instantly, licking the pup's face with frantic care. Ryan didn't reach for them. Not yet. He sat back on his heels and let his hands rest where she could see them. "I'm not here to take them," he said quietly. His voice was low and steady, the way he spoke to people who were already frightened. "I'm here because you can't stay like this." The mother dog gave a low, warning rumble, more fear than threat. She positioned herself between him and the bin, her body shaking but stubborn. Ryan glanced at his German shepherd. The service dog stood a step behind him, calm as stone, eyes tracking the mother's tension. No barking, no forward push, just presence. Ryan pulled off one glove and placed it on the ground. Then he pulled a small bottle of water from his coat pocket and set it down, opening it slowly so the plastic crackle wouldn't startle her. He slid it closer and stopped. The mother dog stared at the bottle, then at Ryan. Her nostrils flared. She didn't drink. She didn't trust that easily. Ryan's jaw tightened when he looked at the rope again. It wasn't an accident. Someone had tied it. Someone had decided this was an acceptable way to leave a living creature. He took out a small folding knife, careful to keep it low and visible, and spoke again. "I'm going to cut that rope. That's all." The mother dog's ears flattened. She shifted, trying to protect the puppies and keep distance at the same time. Her leg trembled where the rope bit into it. Ryan moved inch by inch. The knee pain made him slower, but in a way that helped. Slow meant less threatening. He stopped whenever her breathing sped up. When he finally reached the knot, he didn't tug it. He simply slid the blade under the rope and cut. The rope fell away. For a moment, nothing happened. The mother dog stood frozen, as if waiting for the next hurt. Then she tested her leg with one cautious step. Her eyes widened, confused by freedom. She didn't run. She didn't snap. She stayed right where her puppies were. Ryan exhaled through his nose, the kind of breath that released a little anger without letting it take over. "Good," he whispered. He shrugged off his navy coat and spread it on the cold ground, making a clean, warm surface as best he could. The wind cut into his flannel, but he ignored it. He reached into the bin and lifted the first puppy carefully, supporting its whole body. The pup was so light it barely registered in his hands. The mother dog tensed, ready to lunge. Ryan didn't flinch. He held the puppy close to the ground and placed it on the coat, only inches away. Then he lifted the second, then the third, then the fourth, each one with the same steady pace. The mother dog followed every movement, eyes locked on his hands. She sniffed the puppies when they were set down, as if checking for damage. When she realized he wasn't hurting them, she let out a shaky breath she seemed to have been holding for hours. Ryan leaned closer and saw marks on her neck, old pressure lines, like she had been tied up before, not just tonight. One ear had a small, torn notch, too clean to be random. He felt something hard settle inside him. This wasn't just abandonment. It was a pattern. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's get you out of here." He stood, bracing his knee, and took off the scarf from his neck to wrap loosely around the puppies for extra warmth. Then he lifted the coat corners like a sling. The mother dog hesitated, then stepped in close, refusing to leave her babies even if she didn't trust the man. Ryan kept his body turned slightly sideways, giving her space. His service dog stayed calm, watching the surroundings, a quiet guard. By the time they reached Ryan's small rented room above a repair garage, his fingers were numb. Inside, he set a cardboard box on the floor and lined it with towels. He warmed water, dampened a cloth, and cleaned the mother dog's legs with slow, careful strokes. She flinched at first, then stopped fighting. Ryan heated milk substitute according to the instructions he remembered from a long-ago neighbor who fostered animals. He fed the puppies drop by drop, not rushing, not forcing. The mother dog watched every second, eyes tired but still sharp, as if she believed kindness could turn into danger at any moment. Ryan sat on the floor beside the box, long after the puppies finally settled into sleep. The room smelled like clean towels and wet fur, and cold air still trapped in his clothes. He looked at the mother dog. She looked back. He didn't know her name. He didn't know where she came from, but he knew the look in her eyes. It was the same look he'd seen in people who had been cornered too many times. "I won't leave you," he said, quietly enough that it felt like a vow meant only for the room. The mother dog's head lowered a fraction. Not trust, not yet, but something shifted. Outside, the wind kept scraping at the windows. Inside, 4 small breaths rose and fell, and a 5th stayed awake, guarding them, waiting to see if this new place would hurt them too. Ryan stayed right there on the floor, because he couldn't sleep anyway, and because walking past a whimper was not a skill he had ever managed to learn. The chip that led nowhere. Morning brought a pale sky and hard wind off the lake, the kind that made even sunlight feel cold. Snow squeaked under boots, and the city looked washed out, like it hadn't slept. Ryan Carter left early, moving with that careful stiffness in his left knee that never quite eased. He kept his navy winter coat buttoned, the red and black flannel visible at the collar like a quiet signature. Faded jeans, brown boots. The same outfit, the same discipline, because routine was one of the few things that didn't lie to him. His service dog walked beside him, black and tan coat gleaming where the light caught it, ears upright, amber-brown eyes scanning the sidewalk and the passing cars. The dog didn't make noise. It didn't need to. It watched the world for Ryan the way Ryan once watched the world for others. Ryan carried the cardboard box carefully, both hands under it, elbows tucked in to keep it steady. The puppies were inside, bundled in towels. The mother dog walked close, head low, ribs still showing under dirty fur. But her steps had a new urgency now. Not hope, not yet. Just survival that had been given a reason to keep moving. At the clinic, the sign read, "Lakeside Animal Care." The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and damp wool. Posters on the wall showed smiling animals and cheerful words Ryan didn't trust. Nothing in his life had ever been fixed by a poster. A woman stepped out from behind the counter as soon as she saw the box. She was in her mid-30s, white, with brown hair pulled into a tight, practical bun. Her eyes were clear and steady, the kind that didn't flinch at bad news. She wore dark blue scrubs under a light clinic jacket, and her hands moved with efficient gentleness. "I'm Dr. Hannah Pierce," she said, voice calm, grounded. Her gaze flicked to Ryan's face, then down to his knee as he shifted weight. "You can bring them back. We'll go straight in." Ryan nodded once. He wasn't used to people moving fast for the right reasons. Hannah led them into an exam room. She spoke softly as she worked, not in baby talk, but in the tone of someone who respected fear without feeding it. The mother dog froze at the doorway, eyes wide, muscles tight. Hannah didn't approach her head-on. She angled her body slightly, lowered her stance, and held out the back of her hand so the dog could smell her without feeling cornered. "She's been through something," Hannah murmured, more to Ryan than to herself. Ryan set the box down. She was tied under a bridge. Hannah's jaw tightened, just a small motion that showed anger controlled by years of practice. Of course she was. The service dog lay down by Ryan's feet, still alert, a quiet guard. Ryan watched the mother dog's breathing. It was shallow and fast, but she didn't lunge. She watched Hannah with the same wary calculation Ryan recognized from his own past. When you've been hurt enough times, kindness looks like a trap until proven otherwise. Hannah examined the puppies first. She weighed each one, checked their gums, listened to tiny chests that sounded like paper breaths. "They're weak," she said, "but they're alive. That matters." Her hands moved to the mother dog. Hannah palpated her ribs gently, checked her hydration, lifted her lip to look at her teeth. She traced the marks around the dog's neck with a careful fingertip, as if touching them too roughly would insult the pain already there. "Malnourished," Hannah said. "Dehydrated. And she's been nursing on almost nothing." She glanced at Ryan. "She's not just a stray. This looks like prolonged neglect." Ryan kept his face still, but inside, something burned. Not hot anger, but a colder version, the kind that didn't shout, the kind that made decisions. Hannah lifted one ear and paused. There was a small notch, too clean. She looked at it again, then reached for a scanner. "Let's see if she has a chip." Ryan didn't know why his stomach tightened. Maybe because a chip meant a name, a record, a history that would lead somewhere. Maybe because he wanted the world to have at least one breadcrumb that proved this dog mattered. Hannah passed the scanner along the mother dog's neck and shoulders. The device beeped once, then displayed nothing. She tried again, slower. Another beep. Still nothing. Hannah frowned. "That's odd." "What?" Ryan asked. She ran her fingers along the skin behind the dog's shoulder blades. "There's scar tissue here. She likely had one. It looks like it was removed." Ryan stared at the spot. The thought of someone cutting into a living animal to erase proof made his hands curl into fists. "Why would anyone?" he started. Hannah's voice stayed calm, but her eyes hardened. "Because they didn't want her traced." The mother dog shifted, tense again. The service dog didn't move, but Ryan felt its focus sharpen. Ryan forced his hands open. He remembered the way the mother dog had watched him feed her puppies last night, waiting for the next hurt. He didn't want to become another source of threat in her world. Hannah administered fluids and checked for infection. She spoke in a measured way, laying out what she could treat now and what would take time. "She needs calories," Hannah said. "Rest, warmth, and she needs to feel safe, even if she doesn't know how yet." Ryan nodded. Safe. It was a word that sounded simple until you tried to build it from scratch. A knock came at the door, sharp and quick, followed by the entrance of a younger woman carrying a plastic tote filled with supplies. She was around 28, white, with ash blonde hair tucked into a knit cap. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, and her eyes were bright in a way that suggested she'd made a habit of running toward problems. "Hannah," she said, voice fast, "I brought the donated formula and blankets." Then she saw the mother dog and the puppies and stopped mid-step, her expression shifting from energy to shock. Oh no." Hannah introduced her. "Ryan, this is Maya Collins, Volunteer with the local rescue network. Maya, this is Ryan, he said, simple. Maya's gaze flicked to Ryan's service dog, then to Ryan's stiff stance. She read him quickly, the way people who had seen too much learned to read a room. You found them? She asked. Under the bridge, by the old rail line. Maya's mouth tightened. That's the third report I've heard near that area in 2 weeks. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Report? Maya stepped closer, lowering her voice. She had the kind of face that could look friendly in daylight and fierce when it mattered. Dogs disappearing, she said. Not just strays, people's pets too. Folks say they see a van at night, no logo, lights off. And then, nothing. Hannah leaned against the counter, arms crossed, frustration obvious now. I've called it in before. I've filed notes. The city says it's handled. Maya scoffed, humorless. Because there's a private recovery contract. Ryan looked between them. Who? Maya said the name like it tasted wrong. North Star Recovery. They claim they're helping, but people have seen their trucks in places they shouldn't be, at hours they shouldn't be. And the owner, Hannah added, has friends who know how to keep paperwork clean. Ryan stared at the mother dog again. She was lying down now, but her eyes never fully closed. Even here, even with warmth, she stayed half awake. Ryan recognized the posture. Hypervigilance. The body refusing rest because rest used to be punished. He thought of the rope on her leg, the scar where a chip used to be, the notch in her ear. A pattern, like Hannah said. Maya set her tote down and crouched at a respectful distance, letting the mother dog watch her. If this is connected, Maya said, it's bigger than one bridge. Ryan's jaw flexed. Bigger meant harder. Harder meant risk. And yet, he felt something in him settle into place, the way it always had when a mission became clear. He wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble had a way of finding the weak first. Hannah met his eyes. You're thinking about doing something, she said. Ryan didn't answer right away. He heard the faint sound of the puppies shifting in the box, small bodies pressing together for heat. He remembered the bridge, the cold, the fear in the mother dog's eyes. He had walked past enough suffering in his life to know what it cost. No one else is going to, he said finally. Maya's brows lifted. Do what? Ryan's voice stayed low, even. Find out where she came from, and why someone went out of their way to make sure she couldn't be traced. Hannah exhaled slowly. Be careful. Ryan looked down at his service dog. The German shepherd looked back, calm, ready. Not eager, not reckless, just present. Ryan picked up the cardboard box again. The mother dog rose, limping slightly as she followed. At the door, Ryan paused. He looked at Hannah and Maya. If North Star is taking dogs, he said, then they're not just stealing animals. They're stealing the only trust some people have left. Maya's expression softened for a beat, then hardened again into resolve. I can help, she said. Ryan nodded once. Then we start with the bridge. Outside, the wind slapped cold against his face. His knee protested when he stepped down from the clinic's curb, but he didn't slow. Behind him, the mother dog walked closer than before, as if she'd decided that wherever this man went, she had to keep her babies near him. And Ryan realized something he didn't want to admit. He wasn't the only one being rescued anymore. The van with no lights. By evening, the sky turned the color of steel. and the wind carried late cold air through every alley. Snow didn't fall so much as drift, soft and stubborn, as if the city was being quietly erased. Ryan Carter moved through his small rented room above the repair garage with the same controlled pace he used outside. His left knee complained whenever he pivoted too fast, so he didn't. He adjusted. He planned every step like the floor could betray him. The navy winter coat hung on a hook by the door, ready. The red and black flannel was still on him, sleeves rolled down now. Faded jeans, brown boots, no changes. On the floor, a cardboard box lined with towels had become a tiny, breathing universe. 4 puppies slept in a pile, their bodies rising and falling in thin, steady rhythm. The mother dog watched them from the edge, eyes half-lidded but never fully shut. Ryan had finally given her a name earlier that afternoon. Hope. He hadn't said it out loud like a speech. He'd said it once, softly, while refilling her water bowl. The word felt almost ridiculous in his mouth, like something people wrote on greeting cards. But when he looked at her, he couldn't call her stray. He couldn't call her problem. He couldn't call her nothing. Hope had flinched at the sound, then stared at him as if trying to decide whether names were safe again. His service dog sat near the door, black and tan coat clean and calm, ears upright. A quiet sentinel. Ryan had noticed something strange that day. Each time Ryan's knee buckled slightly when he stood, Hope's head lifted. Not fear, not aggression, just attention. As if she'd decided that if her puppies were going to survive, she needed to know whether the human they followed might fall. Ryan told himself he was only doing what anyone should do. Warmth, food, a vet visit, a decent place to sleep. But he also knew the truth he rarely admitted. Some people walked past suffering because they had trained themselves to. Ryan had trained himself to walk toward it, and the habit was hard to kill. A buzz from his phone broke the room's quiet. A message from Maya Collins. I saw the van again, near the old rail line. No logo. Lights off. Ryan stared at the screen longer than he needed to. His chest felt tight, not from fear, but from the weight of what the message meant. If the van was real, then the rope under the bridge wasn't random. It was a system. He didn't want to leave Hope and the puppies. He didn't want to put them in danger by staying. That was the trap of caring. It opened doors in you that danger could use. Ryan looked at Hope. She met his eyes, wary and tired. He spoke softly. You stay here. Hope didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. She rose and stepped closer to the box, placing herself between the puppies and the door. A guard position. Ryan's service dog rose too, already reading the shift in Ryan's body. Not excitement, not panic. Purpose. Ryan took his navy coat from the hook and put it on, hands moving with practiced economy. He checked his phone battery. He slipped a small camera into his coat pocket, the kind that clipped inside fabric and recorded quietly. He didn't carry anything else that could turn this into a fight. If it became a fight, he'd already lost the point. Before leaving, he knelt by the box. His knee flared, sharp and hot. He ignored it. The puppies stirred, then settled again. Hope watched him with a gaze that had once said, "Don't touch them." Now it said, "Don't disappear." Ryan rested his hand on the towel edge, not on her, giving her control. "I'll be back," he whispered. His service dog waited at the door until Ryan opened it, then moved out first, scanning the stairwell, the alley, the street. Quiet work. The night smelled like exhaust and frozen slush. Madison's streets were slick underfoot, and Ryan's stiff knee made every step deliberate. He kept his pace steady anyway. He didn't rush. Rushing made mistakes. Mistakes got people hurt. Sometimes dogs, too. He reached the edge of the old rail line and slowed. The bridge loomed ahead, dark ribs of steel above concrete. The world under it always looked like it had been forgotten on purpose. His service dog paused, ears forward. No bark. A silent alert. Ryan crouched behind a rusted utility box and waited. Then he saw it. A white van rolled in without headlights, like it didn't want the night to notice. It stopped near the service road, idling. Two men stepped out. Both wore dark jackets and caps pulled low. They moved like they'd done this before, confident in their invisibility. One man dragged a metal crate from the back of the van. The other carried a net and a bag of food. They scattered kibble onto the ground like bait. Ryan felt something in his jaw tighten. The cold made his teeth ache, but this was different. This was the ache of watching cruelty dressed up as routine. A dog appeared from the shadows, ribs showing, tail low. It approached the food with cautious hunger. The man with the net waited until the dog's head dipped. Then the net snapped forward. The dog yelped, muffled as it thrashed. The second man shoved it toward the crate. Metal clanged. The crate door slammed shut. Ryan's hands stayed still, even though his blood wanted movement. He forced himself to breathe slow. He clipped the camera inside his coat so it pointed toward the men. He lifted his phone just enough to capture faces, the van, the crate. His service dog stayed pressed close, body tense, but silent. The men loaded the crate into the van. One of them glanced around as if he could feel eyes on him. Ryan held his breath. He didn't blink. The men climbed in. The van rolled away, still without lights, taking the night route that avoided main roads. Ryan waited 3 seconds after it moved, then followed at a distance. He kept to side streets, using the glow of distant streetlights and the van's faint outline. His knee throbbed as he quickened, but he didn't let it change his rhythm. The service dog matched him, silent and precise, never pulling, never lagging. The van crossed into the industrial east side, where warehouses sat like sleeping beasts and the air smelled of oil and cold metal. It turned onto a narrow road that ran between chain-link fences. Then it stopped. A warehouse with a dented roll-up door. No sign. No logo. Just a security light, flickering like it couldn't decide whether to help. The men backed the van in. The roll-up door lifted just enough to swallow it. Then it closed again. Ryan stood behind a parked semi-trailer, heart steady, mind sharp. From inside the warehouse, he heard the sound he'd been expecting. Dogs. More than one. Some barking, some whining, a chorus of fear and confinement. He felt a deep, familiar pressure in his chest, the kind that came before action, the kind that used to mean orders, objectives, targets. Now it meant something else. A promise. He pulled out his phone and called the number Maya had given him. Detective Luis Ramirez answered on the third ring, voice rough with fatigue. "Ramirez," he said. "This is Ryan Carter," Ryan whispered. "I have them. The van. 2 men. They caught a dog under the bridge and brought it to a warehouse on the east side." A pause. Then, careful. "Do you have video?" "Yes." "Are you inside?" "No." "Good," Ramirez said, and Ryan could hear the relief behind the sternness. "Don't go in. Give me the address." Ryan recited it, eyes fixed on the warehouse door as if his stare could pin it shut. Ramirez's voice lowered. "You did the right thing calling. Now you leave." Ryan wanted to argue. He wanted to stay until the door opened again, until he could see more. But he thought of Hope in the garage room, of 4 puppies breathing into the towels, of the message a van without lights carried. He had enough for tonight. He backed away, step by step, until the warehouse was just another dark shape in the distance. On the walk home, the wind felt colder, as if it had teeth. Ryan's knee ached like a warning. His service dog stayed close, steady. When Ryan opened his door, Hope was already standing. She didn't rush him. She didn't retreat. She just watched, eyes wide, as if she'd been holding her breath the entire time he was gone. Ryan crouched, wincing, and kept his voice soft. "I'm here." Hope took one step forward, then another. She lowered her head and pressed her nose to the back of his hand, just for a second. A touch so light it could be denied if anyone tried to name it. But Ryan felt it anyway. He sat on the floor beside the box, the puppies safe between them, and stared into the dim room. He had a warehouse address in his phone. He had dogs crying behind metal. And he had a mother dog named Hope, who had finally decided that a human could be more than a threat. Outside, Madison stayed quiet. Inside, Ryan understood exactly what the next chapter would cost. The warehouse that shouldn't exist. A wet snow began to fall at dusk, soft flakes that melted the moment they touched pavement. The sky hung low over Madison, and the wind had the restless, warning edge of something about to break. Ryan Carter didn't sleep much after the call with Detective Ramirez. His body knew how to rest, but his mind refused to believe the danger was contained just because he'd walked away from the warehouse. He sat in the narrow kitchen area of his rented room above the garage, staring at his phone like it might change the truth if he stared long enough. His navy winter coat lay folded on a chair. The red and black flannel was still on him, as if taking it off would mean admitting he was done. Faded jeans, brown low-cut boots. His left knee throbbed in a dull, steady rhythm, the pain a quiet metronome that reminded him to move carefully, to think first. His service dog stayed close, black and tan coat sleek against the dim light, ears upright even while resting. The dog's amber-brown eyes tracked every small sound from the alley below. No barking, just vigilance. Hope lay near the cardboard box, guarding the puppies. She didn't fully relax. She never did. But she had stopped treating Ryan's hands like weapons. That mattered more than she could ever understand. When his phone buzzed again, Ryan's heart didn't jump. It tightened. Maya Collins. "Ramirez says you gave him the address. He needs a link to North Star. We need proof it's Pike's place." Ryan typed back. "I have video of the capture and the van, not Pike." He stared at Hope. Her gaze met his, steady and tired, like she understood the word proof the way she understood rope. Ryan exhaled slowly and called Maya. They met later that morning at a small cafe near the lake, the kind of place with warm yellow lights and windows that fogged from people breathing inside. The smell of coffee was comforting, but Ryan didn't let himself lean into comfort. Comfort made you careless. Maya arrived first, bundled in a thick coat, ash-blonde hair escaping her knit cap in wisps. Her cheeks were pink from the cold. Her eyes were bright, but today there was tension under the brightness, a tightness at the corners that told Ryan she'd been carrying fear like a backpack. Detective Luis Ramirez sat in a back booth, hunched over a paper cup, looking like a man who'd lived too long on late nights and half-truths. Mid-40s, sturdy build, dark hair cut short, a rough shadow of stubble on his jaw. His eyes were tired but sharp, scanning the room the way Ryan's service dog scanned the street. Ramirez nodded at Ryan's entrance. "You brought the footage?" Ryan slid his phone across the table. "Everything I got." Ramirez watched the clip without expression, but Ryan saw his jaw tighten when the net snapped over the stray. "This helps," Ramirez said, "but I still need the warehouse tied to North Star. Otherwise, a good lawyer calls it 2 guys in a van and walks away smiling." Maya leaned forward. "I told you about the contract. The city—" Ramirez raised a hand. "Contracts can be explained away. I need something that points directly at Pike. I need a witness or paperwork." Maya's gaze flicked toward the window, then back. "I might have a witness," she said, voice lowered. "Caleb Shaw." Ryan watched her carefully. Maya's courage looked like speed, like forward motion. But today there was hesitation. That meant this wasn't a casual lead. This was a risk. "Who's Caleb?" Ramirez asked. 26, Maya said. "Worked a short stint at the warehouse, loading and cleaning. Quit after a week. Won't talk to most people. He's scared." Ryan felt a familiar pull in his chest, the part of him that recognized fear as a language. He didn't judge it. He'd spoken it himself for years, just in quieter ways. "Can you bring him?" Ramirez asked. Maya nodded. "He'll come if I'm there, but he won't come if he thinks he'll be left alone afterward." Ramirez's expression softened by a fraction. "If he talks, I can protect him." Ryan said nothing. Protect. It was a heavy word. People said it easily. They didn't always mean it. That afternoon, they met Caleb at the edge of a parking lot behind the cafe, away from the windows. The snow had melted into slush, and the air smelled like wet asphalt. Caleb Shaw arrived with his hood up, shoulders tight. He was white, lean to the point of looking underfed, with hands that didn't stop moving. His fingernails were stained with dark grease, the mark of someone who worked with machines and didn't own enough gloves. His eyes darted constantly, scanning corners, checking for men in vans. He didn't shake Ryan's hand. He didn't look at Ramirez's badge. He looked at Maya. "You said it was safe," he muttered. Maya's voice softened, but her spine stayed straight. "It's as safe as it can be. Just tell them what you told me." Caleb swallowed hard. "I shouldn't be here." Ramirez kept his voice low and steady. "You're not in trouble. You're here because you saw something wrong." Caleb's laugh came out thin and sharp. "Wrong." He looked past them, like the word itself wasn't big enough. "They call it recovery. It's not recovery." Ryan watched Caleb's hands. He'd seen that shaking before, in men who'd come home with their bodies intact and their minds still trapped elsewhere. Caleb's voice dropped. "They bring dogs in at night. Some are strays, some have collars. Doesn't matter. They keep them in cages. If a dog bites, they sedate it." Maya's face tightened. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. Caleb swallowed again, throat bobbing. "And then people come." "People?" Ramirez asked. Caleb nodded, fast. "Not city people. Not volunteers. People who choose. They like dogs that are easy. Dogs that won't fight back. And they like mother dogs." His eyes flicked toward Ryan, shame flooding his face. "If a mother dog still has milk, They say she's valuable. Maya cursed under her breath, a raw sound. She pressed her knuckles against her lips, forcing herself quiet. Ryan's stomach turned, but he kept his expression controlled. He couldn't afford to look like fury. Fury scared witnesses into silence. "Pike," Ramirez said. "Was he there?" Caleb hesitated. "He didn't get dirty." His voice sharpened with resentment. "He stood in clean boots and watched, like it was a warehouse sale, like the dogs were broken appliances." Ryan felt something in his chest go cold. He pictured Hope under the bridge, rope biting into her leg. He pictured the scar where her chip had been removed. It made sense now, a terrible kind of sense. Ramirez's voice softened. "Caleb, are you willing to make a statement?" Caleb's eyes widened. "If I do, I'm dead." "You won't be," Ramirez said. "Not if you cooperate. Not if you let us do this right." Caleb looked at Maya, then at Ryan. "Who is he?" Maya answered, simple. "He's the one who found the mother dog." Caleb's gaze shifted, flickered with something like awe and fear mixed together. "You found her?" he whispered. Ryan nodded. "She's safe." For a moment, Caleb's shoulders dropped, just a fraction, like the truth of that safety gave him permission to breathe. Ramirez leaned in. "If you sign, I can get a warrant. I can bring a team." Caleb's hands shook harder. "I can't." Ryan spoke for the first time since Caleb arrived. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. "I get it." Caleb blinked at him. Ryan continued, eyes steady. "Fear keeps you alive, but it also keeps them in business." Caleb flinched as if struck, then looked down, jaw tight. Silence stretched, full of the kind of pressure that didn't come from threats, but from conscience. Finally, Caleb whispered, "I'll do it. But I want protection for my mom. She doesn't know anything. She can't." Ramirez nodded. "We'll include her. I'll arrange it." Maya let out a shaky breath, relief and anger tangled together. The plan formed fast after that. Ramirez would push for a warrant. He'd build the chain: Ryan's video, the warehouse address, Caleb's testimony, the North Star contract, the paper trails. Ryan should have felt satisfied. Instead, dread crawled under his skin. Because systems didn't like being exposed. They reacted. That night, Ryan stayed home. He kept Hope and the puppies near the back of the room, away from windows. He locked the door, checked it twice, then tightened the brace he'd installed on the frame. His service dog didn't settle. It paced once, then stood still, ears angled toward the stairwell. A sound came from outside. A car door shutting softly. Too softly. Headlights swept across the thin curtains, then vanished. Ryan's pulse slowed, not sped. He knew this moment. The moment before a problem announces itself. A knock came, light and polite. Ryan didn't move. Another knock, then a man's voice, smooth, casual. "Ryan Carter, I just want to talk." Hope rose with a low, trembling sound in her throat. Not a bark, a warning laced with memory. The puppies stirred. Ryan stepped close to the door, body angled. His knee ached, but he planted his weight carefully. He didn't open it. He didn't answer. Outside, the voice chuckled. "You're a hard man to reach." The service dog's growl was so low it almost wasn't a sound at all, more vibration than threat. controlled, measured. The man outside paused. Then his voice changed, losing warmth. "You should keep that mother dog close. Things disappear around here." Ryan's hand tightened on the door frame. He felt the urge to fling the door open, to drag truth into light with his bare hands. He didn't. He waited. There was a heavy thud against the door, like a boot testing it. The frame held. Ryan's brace held. His discipline held. Silence. Then footsteps retreating. A car started. Tires hissed on slush. The sound faded. Ryan stood there long after it was gone, breathing slow, listening. Hope stayed pressed close behind him, shaking, but not running, not hiding. She had chosen her place. Ryan looked down at his service dog. The dog's amber eyes met his, calm and ready. Ryan realized the danger had moved from a warehouse to his doorstep. And now there was no room for mistakes. The day the city finally looked. Dawn arrived with a thin, colorless light, and the cold felt sharpened overnight. Snow clung to fences and rooftops like ash, and Madison seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would be taken next. Ryan Carter sat fully dressed at the edge of his bed, as if sleep had been something meant for other people. Navy winter coat on, red and black flannel beneath it, faded jeans, brown low-cut leather boots planted flat on the floor. His left knee ached, but he didn't shift. Pain was familiar. Uncertainty was worse. His service dog stood by the door, black and tan coat sleek, ears upright, amber brown eyes fixed on the stairwell. Quiet. Ready. Not eager for conflict, but prepared to keep Ryan anchored if the world tilted. Behind them, Hope lay near the cardboard box that held her puppies. Her body curved around the edge like a shield. The door knock from the night before had left her tense, but she hadn't tried to run. She'd watched Ryan brace the door. She'd watched him choose restraint instead of rage. Ryan kept thinking about that, how people expected violence from a man who had learned it. But what they didn't understand was that restraint wasn't weakness. It was work. The phone buzzed. Detective Luis Ramirez. Ryan answered on the first ring. "Ramirez." A pause, then that rough voice, low and controlled. "We're going in." Ryan closed his eyes for a moment. Relief tried to enter. He didn't let it. He'd learned not to celebrate too early. "You got the warrant?" Ryan asked. "We got it," Ramirez said. "Your footage, Caleb's statement, the contract paperwork, it's enough. Stay put. Don't play hero." Ryan almost laughed, but it came out dry. "I'm not." Ramirez's tone softened by a fraction. "Good. Protect the dog. Protect yourself. I'll call." The line went dead. Ryan stayed where he was for a long time, phone still pressed to his ear, as if the silence might become instructions. Outside, a garbage truck rumbled somewhere in the distance. Ordinary noise. Ordinary life. The kind of life that didn't know yet that there were dogs crying behind metal. Hope lifted her head, watching him. Her eyes were still wary, but there was something new in them now. Expectation, maybe. Or the fragile beginning of belief that the morning could bring something other than pain. Ryan stood slowly, feeling his knee complain. His service dog turned with him, matching his movement. Ryan crossed the room and knelt near the box. The puppies were awake, squirming, making tiny sounds like questions. He spoke softly to Hope. They're going to stop it. Hope stared at him as if weighing the words. Ryan didn't blame her for doubting. Trust had never kept her warm under that bridge. Hours crawled. Maya texted once, "Stay home. Ramirez says it's happening." Ryan replied, "I'm home." He sat near the window, but kept the curtain barely cracked, watching the street. His service dog stayed alert, body angled toward the door. Hope remained close to the puppies, but every so often she looked at Ryan, as if checking whether he was still real. Then, close to mid-morning, the phone rang again. Ramirez's voice came through, and Ryan could hear movement behind it. Footsteps, radios, the distant clatter of metal. "We got in," Ramirez said. Ryan's breath caught. "Pike?" "Cuffed," Ramirez answered. "He was there." Ryan's mind painted the warehouse without asking permission. Cold cages, flickering lights, dogs pressed into corners. The sound he'd heard outside the building. Now it had a face. "What did you find?" Ryan asked, forcing the words out steady. "Cages," Ramirez said. "Paperwork, sedatives, a list." His voice hardened. "A list of transfers." Ryan felt his stomach twist, the familiar nausea that came when the world showed its ugliest math. You could count cruelty. You could itemize it. You could file it under a label and pretend that made it less alive. "And the dogs?" Ryan asked. "Alive," Ramirez said. "Most of them. They're scared, but they're alive. Animal control and rescue are taking them now. Maya's there. She's—" Ramirez paused, and Ryan could hear the smallest smile in his voice, the kind a tired man couldn't hide. "She's yelling at everybody, in a good way." Ryan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He stared at his service dog, as if the dog could confirm reality for him. The German shepherd met his eyes, calm and present. "Caleb?" Ryan asked. "He showed," Ramirez said. "He's shaken, but he showed. He's with my people. We'll keep the promise." Ryan nodded even though Ramirez couldn't see it. A promise kept mattered. It mattered more than speeches. After the call ended, the room felt strangely quiet, like the danger had moved away, leaving behind an empty space where fear had been. Ryan had lived with fear so long, he didn't know what to do with the silence. Hope rose and stepped closer, sniffing the air as if the world outside had changed scent. She looked at Ryan, then at the door, then back at the box. Ryan crouched and rested his hand on the floor, palm up, giving her the choice. Hope hesitated, then moved forward and placed her nose against his knuckles, gentle, deliberate. It wasn't just gratitude, it was recognition. She was saying, "You did not leave." Days passed quickly after that, as if the city rushed to cover the hole that had opened. News vans appeared near the industrial district. People shared grainy clips online. The words "North Star Recovery" spread across neighborhoods like a warning label finally printed in ink. At the clinic, Hannah called Ryan and told him donations were flooding in. Not just money. Blankets, food, offers to foster. Ryan listened and felt something strange in his chest. A community waking up. But waking up didn't erase what had happened. It just meant people had to live with knowing. A week later, Hope and her puppies were strong enough to leave Ryan's room. The puppies had rounder bellies now, warmer paws. Hope's coat had begun to shine again, the dullness lifting as if her body remembered how to be alive. Ryan brought them to the rescue center with Maya. The building smelled like clean straw and soap, And there were voices everywhere. Kind voices, busy voices. Hope stayed close to Ryan at first, the old fear still flickering in her eyes. Maya knelt beside Hope, her ash-blonde hair falling from her cap, her expression soft for once. "You did good, girl," she whispered. Hannah arrived too, still in her scrubs, hair pulled tight, eyes bright with relief. "She's gained weight," she told Ryan, as if reporting a victory that mattered. "She's going to be okay." Ryan nodded, but something inside him felt heavy. He had carried Hope out of the dark. Now he had to let her go. When the older couple arrived, the adopters, Ryan watched them from a distance. They were in their early 60s, bundled in warm coats, faces kind and lined with the sort of patience you couldn't fake. The woman held her hands out slowly. The man stayed slightly behind her, letting Hope decide the pace. Hope sniffed the air, then stepped forward. Not running, not trembling, just cautious courage. Ryan felt his throat tighten. Love, he realized, wasn't always staying. Sometimes love was letting a life move on without you. As they prepared to leave, Hope turned back. She walked up to Ryan, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her breath. For a moment, she simply looked at him, amber eyes steady. Then she pressed her nose to his hand, the same soft touch she'd given him after he came home from the warehouse. A signature. A thank you without words. Ryan swallowed hard and managed a small smile. "Go," he murmured. "This time it's a real home." Hope turned and followed the couple to the car. She didn't look back again. Ryan stood still, navy coat and red and black flannel catching the pale winter light. His knee ached. His chest ached more. Beside him, his service dog leaned slightly into his leg, steadying him without needing a command. Maya stepped up, wiping at her eyes, trying to laugh and failing. "You know," she said, voice rough, "for a guy who doesn't want attention, you sure caused a lot of it." Ryan exhaled, something like humor and sorrow mixing together. "Good," he said. "Maybe the city needed it." He watched the car disappear down the road, carrying Hope toward warmth and quiet and a yard that didn't smell like fear. For the first time in a long time, Ryan felt the space inside him shift. He had thought he was saving a dog, but somewhere between the bridge and the warehouse and the last soft touch of Hope's nose, he realized the truth. Some rescues went both ways. Some miracles do not arrive with thunder or a bright sign in the sky. They arrive as a quiet moment in an ordinary night, when someone chooses not to walk past a helpless cry. Maybe that is God's will at work, placing a small life in Ryan's path to remind us that mercy still has a place in this world. In daily life, we all get tired, busy, and tempted to think, "It's not my problem." But real faith often looks like one small choice: to stop, to help a little, to treat someone with kindness, and to believe that goodness can travel farther than we ever expect. One warm action can save an animal, a family, and sometimes it can also save the heart of the person who offered it. If this story touched you, please share it to spread kindness. Comment below and tell me about a small miracle you have witnessed in your own life. And subscribe for more healing stories like this. God bless you and your family.